In most horror games, movement is always seen as a necessary feature, but it pretty much always feels really dull and bland, especially when whole parts of the game are dedicated to getting chased. But what if you combine good movement and horror to create? But my game didn't always look like this, and it all started a couple weeks ago when I was scrolling YouTube and came across this video. It was about this guy climbing up blocks in Minecraft. Now you might be thinking, this video looks like it's meant for toddlers. Yeah, it is. And apparently that's the same thing my friends thought when I tried to show them the video. They didn't even give it a chance. And I could understand them judging the video. However, I did not expect to be shunned by everyone I knew. They called me names, threw trash at me on the streets, and I couldn't even leave my house. But if they had just gave it a chance and watched it, they would realize that it's gotta be one of the greatest pieces of media ever written. So in order to honor the immense impact this video has had on my life, and just maybe convince my friends I'm normal, I decided to remake the game. So of course I started by creating the project, and worked on one of my many goals for making the player. But there was a small little problem. Every character controller I've ever made has been straight trash. Like, the character would stick onto walls and the movement would feel very stiff. But it wasn't a huge issue for my other games because they had hardly any platforming sections. But now I'm making a platformer. So I threw the old movement away and started making a new movement system with this tutorial. And after 6 long, hard hours, the character can now slide down hills and platform a lot better. Now you might be thinking, this looks nothing like the original video. And yeah, you'd be right. I tried to make the gameplay similar, but I just ended up having more fun with the hills. So I deleted the old gameplay and started making the new terrain. But when playtesting, I kind of realized there was nothing to kill the player. So I got some lava from the asset store and poured it into the game. And stepping on it caused the player to take ticks of damage. Surprisingly, in its unfinished state, the game was already fun to play. But if I wanted to make a reason for the player to play the game, I would need some goals to accomplish. Initially, I wanted the player to go from their spawn location to this house on top of the mountain and retrieve a key that would be used later. But I kind of realized it was super boring and a lazy fetch quest. And because I couldn't think of anything else, I wanted to hide that fact. So I picked the next laziest option and made my game into a horror game. Now, I actually don't know much about horror games besides the fact that it gets a ton of views. So it was time to learn. To truly understand the genre, I went ahead and researched some of the most classic horror games of our time, such as Garden of Banban. In fact, this game is so good that it's caused change in people, such as Thick Noodles. At first, the guy was just a normal person playing Minecraft in his room. However, video by video, you could feel his mental state start to change. He even started using this cat thing as his icon. The state he is in is truly disturbing, especially compared to the Think Noodles of 2010. And I know this game with its brain-numbing puzzles was definitely the cause. But if a game that plays like this,
everything else along the way.
can sell like this, I must follow in its footsteps. With all my research done, adding horror to my game would be easy. The first part of the game would be very similar, with the player leaving home to go to the top of the other mountain to retrieve the key. However, exiting the house would cause the environment to change, but there wasn't anything to really be scared of, so I'm gonna go get some assets. I guess this one looks good enough. Yeah, I'll get this one too. And I guess while I'm here, I'll just get the other assets I need. Okay, so this isn't really necessary, but the Unity skybox looks terrible. So I'm gonna see if I can find a better one. Okay, this one is actually pretty good. And since I'm making a horror game, I'll also need a monster model that I can use for chase scenes and jump scares. So this part actually took a long time, so I'm not gonna bore you with the footage, but I eventually picked this monster because, I don't know, the audio sounded like this in the recording. And I can't remember why I chose it, but it doesn't look too bad. Then finally, I went to go get the skybox that would be used after exiting the house. This looks like one of those Galaxy Wolf hoodies. I don't know, but it's the only thing free, so might as well. So after finding all the assets I would need, I started placing them into the scene. Okay, so now when you spawn in, you can actually see your objective, and this skybox also looks much better, but I'm not too sure how the other skybox is gonna look. As you can see, I wasn't very confident that the skybox would look that good, and was fully prepared to drop the $20 on the other one. But okay, that's actually not that bad. Yeah, the more I look at it, the more I think it's better. Now that I had all my assets placed, it was time to make my game playable. First, I started with the door. I wanted the player to go into the house and grab the key, but when they came out, the skybox would be changed. However, I don't have any footage of this because it would constantly crash my project. So instead, I decided to make the door a load screen where it changed the sky and transition from one scene to the next. And with that fixed, the player is finally inside the building where the key is. Walking on it transfers it to the player's hand, but So that was the player's introduction to the monster, but I can't really blame myself for leaving it like this. I got stuck on just trying to make the monster appear with a bunch of colliders that just wouldn't work. So if I just walk here, it should just show up. Okay, I guess not. In the end, I ditched the system and just made the monster spawn in on a cooldown and disappear when the light turns off. But finally, the player was outside and it was time to add the jump scare. But my rigging skills are less than good. So I opted for a simpler system that involves this box. After leaving the house, the box, spanning the entire map, will progressively get faster until you either make it to the end or get completely caught by it. And to make it easier to visualize, I made the screen get darker depending on how far you're in it. And if you're caught all the way inside, your screen will go completely dark. And this is where I plan on adding the jump scare. However, I couldn't avoid using the animator for this one. Okay, so I'm pretty sure I finished. Okay, so now this time it should work. Okay, so considering from where I started, that's not terrible. Obviously, there was no sound for the jump scare, so I'll just go ahead and take that. And now with the sound effects, it's feeling much scarier. But the final thing I needed to fix with my game was my map. The map was only made for the first part of the game and not the chase. So I made the terrain a little different and added these lanterns to make it clear where you needed to go. And to end the game, I wanted to honor the video that started this project. I made this final platforming section to get to the end of the game, and now it was time to play through it. Hey, are you trying to play the game I just made? Ugh.